Welcome to the Block Party. My name is Seth Kushner, and today, as you can tell by the background, I am joined by Mountain Man McElhinney, Mountain Time Curtis McElhinney, back-to-back Stanley Cup champ. Thanks for doing this, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Enjoying everything that retirement's had to offer so far, that's for sure.
All right, listen, let's kick this off. The other day, as we sit here recording this on Super Bowl Sunday, you got your ring from the Lightning. And tell me, I saw your kids there. Your kids both look like they're full grown. Do both your kids think you're cool?
Not in the least. And I think part of it was when my wife and I were starting out, we decided to have the kids a little earlier. And I thought they'd appreciate getting to hang out in NHL arenas and be around a professional hockey player, but they did not care. That was just kind of business as usual. I think the only thing I found was kind of interesting when I was playing in Toronto, actually. My son would ask me to get like cards signed by Austin Matthews. So he's like sending me to the PA office to get cards, and he'd be trading them at school. And I was like, man, you know what that card's worth, right? He'd trade them for these little like toys. They were called Beyblades, and you would kind of battle with them in this little arena. But that was his currency. So
That's crazy,
that was
Curtis.
kind of, it cracked me up just the way he thought about it, and he more or less indifferent to just kind of being surrounded by some of the best in the NHL.
Now that's crazy, Curtis. I collect cards, and if somebody had an Austin Matthews autograph, we're talking at, that's a few $100s or something like that. Could be even more. I'm more concerned that he wasn't getting enough for those trades he was pulling off in school.
Well, in his mind, he was pulling home a few Beyblades, and I'm sure parents were wondering what was going on. But in Toronto, obviously, like you said, those cards were primo, and he was just kind of handing them out like he had candy in his back pocket or something.
So even what was your kids like? When were they the most taken? Was it like when you won the Stanley Cup? I mean, I'm sure you had your day with the cup, getting the rings. Was there any moment where you finally thought, yes, it paid off having kids early? They finally respect something I've done.
I'd say it had to be the boat parade for sure. Obviously with the first run there, we were kind of in that little bubble, and nobody really got to partake in that, and which was unfortunate. But the boat parade was kind of where I feel like it really hit home. And we were on the boat for the first one with the Coburn family, and Kobe had some kids, and so our kids got to hang out, wave flags. They were, catching beers from people launching them from the edge of the water there. So that was probably, I think, one of those moments where you kind of realize the whole scope of what you're a part of and what you got to be involved with. So that was pretty unique and special. Obviously, you know, doing a boat parade is a one-off thing, unique to Tampa.
Very much so. Although we're getting to have a few, as of late. Curtis, when did you know last season was going to be your last one?
Um, I think just the way the season played out for me, winning the first one, it was kind of like a capstone moment in the career. I had another year on the contract. I'm always hesitant to sign 2-year contracts, but anytime you're kind of a fringe NHL player like I was, you take the money when it's presented to you. So, but anytime I'd had a second year on a contract, I was always on the way out or to another team at some point. So I was hesitant to do it. But when you win a cup and there's the opportunity like that team was to stick together for another year, I was all in. It was just one of those tricky years where I think I didn't play a game in over a year, based on when we wrapped up with the first COVID break and through the playoffs, and then starting in the new year for the second season. So, it was a long, long year for me, and it was hard to kind of find that rhythm the second season and get back into it. And when you're playing behind a guy like the Big Cat, it's, your starts are few and far between. And I'm sure Brian Elliott's found that a little challenging this year. And, I've been watching him have success, but it's certainly not an easy thing when you look down the end of the ice every practice and you see the Big Cat doing his thing. It's, it's a little infuriating. He's just so good and so dominating at everything that he does that you look down and you're like, what am I doing here right now? So, but, it was unique. It was one of those special circumstances where that team was able to stick together for a second season and, fortunately put something together that was pretty special.
Curtis, what was your mindset going to the arena each night when you would know that Vazzy was getting the start, especially in the playoffs? Do you go, because I don't even know the last time Vazzy got pulled in a game. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know you have to be ready each night, but is there something in the back of your head being like, this guy's going the distance, I don't have to worry about much?
Yeah, I had like a little routine built up. Obviously, when you carve out the role that I did, you're in tune with the coaches, you're in tune with your starting goalie, you kind of know how things work. And in Tampa, it's just a different different case, because one, he's not coming out of the net. Two, he doesn't want to come out of the net, period. I don't even think if he's having an off game, he's coming out of there. And I think the coaching staff and Coop's got an understanding, and the goalie coach, Franz, they know exactly what he wants. And that's to be in that net at all times. And if anything, it's almost hard to give games to the backup goalie just because he's so reluctant to relinquish that. But yeah, for me, it was always, you kind of checked out after the second period. You knew how the game was going, you saw it developing, and you were almost safe, barring an injury, right? And knock on wood here, but he's probably been one of the most durable goalies in the last couple seasons to go the distance, and for the amount of work that he's put in, it's truly remarkable to watch him.
I'm sorry about my dog barking. This is a first right here on the block party. Hold on, Piper, be quiet. We're talking to Curtis, is a back-to-back Stanley Cup champ. Get out of here. Go. All right, sorry about that. We're East Coast in Florida. The dogs, they're in full swing. They're excited for the Super Bowl. They've got money on the game.
Nice.
Okay. So, Curtis, what did you learn? You played with a bunch of goalies, a bunch of players. What did you learn from Vazzy?
A few technical things, just his reads, and now I coach youth goalies, and we do a lot of our stuff online. So we break down a lot of video. And, I will say, sitting on the bench, watching a guy like Vazzy in practice as well, you don't get to truly, you do appreciate what he does. But when I started watching his video consistently, just to kind of show and illustrate some of the things that he does, it's, you get a really deep dive. And I would say, for me, the biggest appreciation that I took from him when I originally signed there a couple of years ago was just how much his hockey IQ has grown. And I think, everyone recognized the talent level, the athleticism, and all that comes with him. But what I noticed is just the experience that he's gained in the last two runs here. Obviously, there was that, the Columbus issue the year before I got there, and how that all played out. But just the sheer determination and the willingness to continue to grow his hockey IQ. And I watch him make plays now that, there's things that he can do that only elite goalies can do. And it's not necessarily the flexibility and the quickness. It's more just his reads and how he sets up to make a save, which, if I guess we have to point out one thing, you'll notice the way he turns a stick over sometimes onto the backside of his blade and will break up a breakaway. And to have the decision-making process to do that at the speed that he can do it in that moment it's just out of this world. So it's probably just his hockey IQ that I don't know if I actually learned anything from it, because I cannot make decisions that fast, and there's not many goalies that can. But he's continued to evolve, and it's impressive.
Curtis, what's your flexibility like compared to Vazzy? Because he does things that make, regular just dudes go, Mike, I don't know how anybody could do that. That looks like that hurts. How do you are those things that separate him from some of the other goalies?
Yeah, I would intentionally not watch him stretch, just because that's an injury for me waiting to happen. But, I got to the point in my career where I could get into the splits, but it was more of an accident than an intentional thing, where for him, it's just, business as usual. Anytime there's a TV timeout, you just watch him sit in kind of that relaxing pose, and he's got his butt on the ground in almost a butterfly stretch, and that's his hip mobility is out of this world.
Now listen, you talked about you have it's a goalie school or a goalie club. It's MHH Goalie Club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so did you just start this after you retired, or did you have this going kind of last year?
No, so I'm linked up with my college goalie partner, Matt Zaba. He's based out of Denver here. He's got a training facility in town there. And I'm tucked away up in the mountains doing most of the online stuff. And that's through video coaching. We'll host some webinars where we like to break down NHL goalies and just kind of do a deep dive on them. Vazzy was one of the first guys we featured. Super easy guy to, obviously I've got a soft spot for him. Anytime somebody puts a couple rings on your hand, you tend to favor them, and you look at them with kind of stars in your eyes. So it's been fun. It keeps me involved in the game. I never really had any intentions of moving to American League cities or in another NHL city to train. I dragged my family all over for 16 years. So we certainly got the benefit of playing professional hockey and getting to enjoy all those ups and downs. But, now it's more just about the kids and kind of being in a stable location, knowing that you can't be traded.
And I'm going to ask you about that later. Now, I was on your website and you did something online. It's, you do mental skills training, with some of these goalies. what percentage of the game is mental? I'm starting to think it's way more than maybe some of us even realize, especially for you goalies.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. I mean, I don't want to knock the starting goalies, but when you're a guy that plays every night, you're just kind of in that rhythm and you have that flow, and you know, you have seasons that have ups and downs, but you're always able to work it out. And when you're a backup goalie or you're a kid playing in the minor leagues, and you know, you're fighting against somebody where they're going back and forth to see which one's going to take over the number one job and kind of make that jump to the NHL. You have to be mentally strong. And I mean, there's just things that are completely out of your control. And sometimes the game just doesn't go your way and bounces go the opposite way. So it's about trying to keep those kids on track and to help them understand. I mean, I think a lot of times today we look at goalies and we see all these young kids having success, and you know, everybody just attributes that, well, that should be me right now. I should be in those shoes. There's 20-year-old kids coming up and playing in the NHL right away, which is unbelievable and it's tremendous. But you know, that's a long road to get there. And for every Vasi that's out there that's came in and kind of had instantaneous success, there's kids that are kind of on the bubble that, you know, my goal with that is to take that kid that may play a handful of NHL games possibly, and I'd like for him to carve out a 10-year career in the league. And it could be as something as simple as being a backup goalie, but at the end of the day, that's still a pretty remarkable accomplishment. There's only so many guys that can come in and be able to do what Vasi could do, or any of those other elite goalies that play in the league. But you know, I'm kind of focusing in on really helping those kids that might get a game or two here and get them to the consistent level where they can carve out a solid career and something to be proud of. And maybe they stick around and they don't get all the accolades, but you know, at the end of the day, maybe you're sitting on a team where you get to support a guy like Vasi and you end up winning a Stanley Cup as a result of it.
Yeah, was the mental that's very well said, by the way. Was the mental training or mental coaching, was that available early on in your career? Or did that stuff start to become more prevalent, you know, like later on when they go, hey, these guys, they gotta be talked to. They might have to have things sorted out. It's not just, you know, physical stuff they're doing out there.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does the physical stuff. That's the easy part. You know, if you're willing to grind and put in that time, we can all learn the technical skills of being a goalie. And everybody does the exact same things. It's just, how do you handle those moments where, you know, it doesn't go your way. You're out for a couple weeks, you get injured and you have to watch somebody else try and take your job, and you know, you're sitting there wondering when your next opportunity is going to be. And that's the hard part of the game. And finding a way to kind of work through those moments when you're a younger goalie and you don't have the results that you want right away, or you're getting traded, or you're bouncing from league to league, especially in the COVID era now. It's been so bizarre just to see the goalie movement. And I think there's been over 100 goalies that have played in the NHL this year, which is just remarkable. And,
Jeez.
you know, the nice thing about that is there's opportunities. And, you know, that's something when I came in that wasn't the case. You know, guys played for as long as they did and they weren't giving you an inch. It was just such a competitive environment. And now, you know, goalies were getting taken out for a week due to COVID regulations. So, you know, it can be challenging. It's a grind. It's not easy. That's for sure.
Let's talk about something that I don't think enough people are talking about. And if it's not an issue for you and goalies, then I'll drop it. But it's an issue for me just watching at home. I don't understand why the backup goalie it seems like you guys have absolutely no room on the bench. It seems like they put you guys in a corner. It looks like you're in timeout. It looks like you're in the way and you're just crunched in there with all your pads. Did you ever feel like you guys could spread out and you could have a little more room, or were you good, you know, being kind of scrunched in there with everybody else?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, you want to be a part of the game. Tampa's bench is absolutely horrendous because anytime you try to watch Vasi or whatever in the first and third, you're kind of like, you got your neck creaked back there. So it's not an ideal bench setup. And obviously we could sit down and go through every NHL team and whether it was good or bad and walk you through that. I will say, when we got to Edmonton and we were in the bubble there, we were dressing and we had the 11-7 roster go. So the defensive end was always stacked. And I intentionally sat in the video coach's office just to give those guys a little bit extra room. So, and it was the same in Toronto. I think I sat at the gate so I wasn't actually on the bench. And you feel a little detached when you're not kind of sitting there and you're watching guys go in and out on their shifts because you're just watching it on video or you're watching it from a corner. So you are a little detached. but it was kind of nice. Like, sitting in the video coach's room, you're kind of in tune with, you're looking for the offsides and you're squinting at the screen, trying to determine, and those guys are making split second decisions on the fly, depending on how that shift played out. And it was pretty intense sitting in there. I don't envy those guys. I mean, that's a pretty stressful situation trying to pick up those things, because those cameras are not crystal clear. But yeah, I would prefer to have a little bit of extra real estate if I could ever get it, kind of spread
Okay.
out a little bit. Tampa's bench is a little jammed up, and I'm sure you can kind of see Elliott there. Just, you're sitting all tight and squeezed in there because you don't want to get in the way in the event that a trainer has to sprint back and grab a stick for a broken stick on the ice. So
Right. It
yeah,
looks like it's why I said it looks like you're in timeout. And I've always wanted to ask that before. And I want to fight for your rights to have more room. You talked about all these goalies that are getting a chance to play. I'd like goalies to have more space on the bench. I feel like that you guys are in an uncomfortable spot in between it all. Although I'm sure you guys hear some great trash talk. Did Corey Perry whiz anything by you guys in the playoffs the last couple of years, or you hear anything good when you were hanging out over there?
No, I don't remember Pears. I mean, he's such a special player. I played with him in Anaheim years ago. He's been a treat to watch this year, just in Tampa. Some of those last second goals he's been scoring to kind of pull him back into games, and just his style and the fact that he always seems to be tangled up with the goalie. I mean, he's a nightmare to play against, even towards the end of his career here. I mean, it's been fun to watch. Kind of a nice pickup, like sneaky nice pickup for him. And obviously it's one of those things, I guess, if you're just butting your head against the team that's knocked you out 2 years in a row, you finally just figure out, I'm like, well, may as well join them. So but one other thing about, Tampa, and if you Vasi not being pulled for 2 years, the other tough spot about that seat is the way you're looking, and Elliott's looking directly at Coop now. So, in the event, you had a team or a coach or an organization that liked to pull their goalies, that would be a terrible spot. And I played with Torts and some other kind of high strung coaches, and that would be a view that I would not want, because anytime things were going south in a game, you were kind of facing the ice. You could look out of the corner of your eye, see if the coach was trying to burn holes into the side of your head. But I would not want a direct sight line to the coach ever. So that might be one of the worst seats. But thankfully, Tampa's a team that doesn't pull goalies too often.
So, I didn't do the research, Curtis. I don't know if you've been pulled in your career. I'm just going to go ahead and say maybe it's happened once. What's that feeling like? I mean, and if you start to give up like 3 or 4, do you start looking over to the bench? What is it? When you're playing with a team that is prone to pull goalies, what's your mindset there?
It's tough. I think the only reason that I never got pulled was because I was the backup, and there's no way in hell they're putting the starting goalie in when it's his night off. So, uh, the funniest one I probably ever had was, I was still playing in Columbus. I think it was Torts. He had just come in to replace Todd Richards, and the other goalie was Jonas Korpisalo. Bobrovsky was hurt at the time, and Corpy had given up a couple goals from beyond the red line, which to me was just unheard of. I'm like, I can't believe this has happened. And the Finnish demeanor is just to kind of laugh things off and let it go. And I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, how could you be so calm about a situation like that? Well, sure, lo and behold, I did the same thing in Philadelphia from the red line. Radko Gudas, right at the bench side there, blasted one and skipped off the ice and went posting in. And so I like watch it go in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but my sight line was directly at Torts, and I can see that face to this day. And I love playing with Torts. He was great to me, obviously. He understood what my limitations were, but the bottom line is he respected the work that I put in. And I think that's the good thing about him, is he understood what my ceiling was. So he wasn't too disappointed, but that look on his face when I let that goal in from the red line, something I'll never forget. So, and I blamed Corpy for that one. I usually don't blame people for my performance, but the fact that he had let in multiple goals from the red line and beyond while I was there, I said, hey, you're just a bad influence on me, and that's your fault. I was just trying to low play it, but yeah, that was something else. So, but I don't know if I ever got pulled in the NHL, but it certainly wasn't a case of performance. It was more just, hey, you're not coming out of this game. We don't really care what happens to you.
And what are you thinking as that's happening, where you've had those games where it's just like you can't catch a break? You're just like, let's just get through this night. Because here's the thing, they say you got to have a short memory and sports. You throw an interception, you let a goal by, you got to come back real quick. But that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, you're not getting bailed out. I think I experienced that last year in Nashville when they just torched me for 7. And it was, it seemed like everything was just going in. And they were getting grade A looks and I couldn't make a save for my life. So uh, it's not a good feeling. It's one of those things you just kind of, you take that bullet and you chew on it. And, I know the team's like, hey, we had an off night, but that doesn't make you feel any better at the end of the day when you still get blasted for that amount of goals. So, I mean, you kind of always have that responsibility where you're like, oh, shoot, I let everybody down. I kind of feel bad about it. The tricky part is, in the backup, it's like, all right, now you just look forward to your next start. And, sometimes it could be 2-3 weeks. So that's a tough one to sit on. When you play in that role, you ride the highs and lows of, you have a good game, you feel like a king for a day. Well, the reality is you're not getting a second start in a row. You're coming right back out for the big guy. So, and it same goes when you have an off night.
What was it like watching Victor Hedman when you would start? I mean, would you go, man, obviously, he's out there helping you out a ton. I mean, is he one of the best players you've ever seen play in front of you?
Yeah, he's just impressive. I mean, obviously his ability to kind of just take over a game, and when he makes that decision, I think, for me, it really stood out in that first cup run when he just had that elite performance from the start of the playoffs to the end. And we weren't even entirely sure if he was going to stick around just based on the fact that they were having their first child. So there were a lot of question marks, and with Stammer being out with some injuries, um, he just took his game to another level. And that's one of those things that you kind of appreciate about those elite players. And it's tough when you watch them. And, Tampa's obviously been very fortunate. They've had some of these great players for better part of a decade now. And, I even got to meet Hetty, I think, when I was traded to Tampa a good 10 years before I actually ended up back there. So he was super young and still kind of coming into his own. But man, I mean, when you watch those players figure it out and they just become elite players for 10 plus years, it's a treat. I think we just, unfortunately, when you watch them day in and day out, you take it for granted. But that playoff run for me was just one of those things that solidified how good he is and how dominant he can be when he wants to be.
What are your thoughts when you're on that bench for, let's say, for the first Stanley Cup, as time's winding down and that it's about to happen? Are you thinking about what you're going to do? Does it all just happen when you just jump over and run onto the ice? Did you have any plans?
Yeah, there weren't any plans. The only thing I was trying to do was just to time it perfectly, because like I said, I was in the video coach's room, so I had about 100-yard walk. I kind of had to waddle out there and make sure I got to do that, where everybody pours over the bench and you're out there and you get all set up. So yeah, truly special. I mean, I know everyone's seen the Stanley Cup ring box that we got presented with, but I'll flip that box open every now and then and watch that video again. And it brings chills to me. It's pretty special. It was super thoughtful of them to kind of put that package together the way that they did.
What is the video that's in there? Is it kind of a montage of the playoff run?
Yeah, it's a montage. And it's one of those things. I think I even have a few guest appearances just going to and fro, right? Or as the camera pans past the bench in some instances. So yeah, it's special. It certainly takes you right back to being in that bubble, whether it was Toronto or Edmonton, and that experience. And then even the second one, I mean, to me, it was just one of those things, like once we got there and once you started catching those breaks, it just seemed almost inevitable. I don't know if that was the case for everyone else, but just the collective experience that group gained in that first Stanley Cup win was, it seemed like it was just a chip on our shoulder to move forward into the second one. But, I mean, you look back now and you're like, wow, you won a game 7 with a shorthanded goal, 1-0. And the Big Cats throwing shutouts and all these series clinching games, and you're just like, that's just remarkable. And I'm so excited to watch these guys see what they can do here. It was, I guess, picking up that ring in Denver this past week made retirement real for me, in a sense that, not that I was intending to move on and play or do anything like that, but just seeing all those guys again made it real for me. And I'm so excited to watch them kind of get in. And I don't know how the rest of the year is going to play out. Obviously, they've found so many different ways to win this year. A lot of that's probably their experience, and then some of the guys they brought in. But
was it weird, Curtis? Was it weird walking in there the other day and getting that ring and seeing all these guys that you played with for the past 2 years, and they're already there, and you're like, wait, I'm not. I'm part of this, but I'm not part of this. Did it feel different walking in?
No, it was almost hard. Well, it was hard in the sense that you walk into the team hotel. You see all those familiar faces. We're in the meal room there. And then all of a sudden you take a breath and you realize you're like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to worry about morning skates tomorrow. I don't have to, I don't have to worry if the Big Cat's going to get injured in a game and I'm going to get thrown in the middle of the game. or, hey, I've got Arizona the next night. All those, I think I would just call them general anxieties, and the energy that comes with playing in that atmosphere was kind of removed. But it took me a second. I walked in there and it's like, oh, I started thinking pregame meal, and where are we going for dinner tonight? What's my morning look like? Am I going to get my butt kicked in the morning skate? Just all sorts of things that you got used to for so long, and your routine, it just got tossed out the window. And I got to sit and watch a hockey game and actually enjoy a hockey game for the first time in a long time. I've seen games from the press box over the years, but never have I sat in the stands and watched a game and really got to appreciate that. And the other side of it was when I was sitting in the rink watching the game, I was going, man, these guys are remarkable. Like, I was just so impressed with how fast the game was. The venue in Colorado was terrific. Like, I just had so much more appreciation for the game of hockey and the presentation of how it was played out. So, usually I'm just so focused in, I don't get to look around. I'm just dialed in that moment. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was a blast to watch. Hockey is fun.
Did you have your day with the cup?
No, I haven't taken it yet. That's kind of been on my thing. I think just with COVID and all the restrictions that were in place. Obviously, I've got family up in Canada, so I've been trying to track down Phil and figure that out, and we're gonna find a date. And in a perfect world, Tampa wins the third one, and I don't have to argue. I'll be like, hey, listen, like, I put this off. It's in Tampa's hands again. Let's make it happen, and we'll figure out whatever that cycle is. In the event that somebody else wins it, unfortunately, I'm going to have to figure that out. But the goal is to take it this summer and to bring some family down. So yeah, I postponed it for 2 days, and my argument was, I'm like, listen, Alex Killorn had it for like 30 days and 30 nights. So I should get at least one day where I get to decide how that plays out.
That is confirmed. I did have Stammer on the podcast right after you guys won the first cup, and he said that Alex Killorn by far used the most cup coupons that first. He took it out to the golf course, he took it out to dinner, he took it out everywhere. But I also think it was because it wasn't on tour, so I think it was just sitting at Amalie Arena, and he would just call Breezer and be like, "You got the cup," and he would take it out, right?
Yeah, 100%. And good on Alex. Like, he's got such a great personality. It's awesome that he was taking it out everywhere and having a good time with it. And that's the whole point of it.
So I asked this to Vazzy, and he burned, his eyes were just burning holes into my soul when I asked him this stupid question. I asked him who sneaks by the most goals in him on practice. He told me nobody scores on him in practice. Who had your number in practice? Which one of the guys? Or whose number did you have?
I don't know. I kind of blacked out all those terrible memories, letting goals in. And gosh, I don't even remember. I always felt like it was the unsuspecting guys. And the reason, usually it was a defenseman who you'd never see get, you know who it was? Braden Coburn. I could never stop Kobe's shot for whatever reason. And I know everyone's like, well, that makes no sense. It's like, well, I didn't really know where he was shooting. A lot of guys, you have their tendencies and the shots that they like to make, or some of the little fakes that they do. But, Kobe was just always one of those guys that first year. I had no idea. I would know where you're shooting, and somehow he would always just hit post. And then, yeah, Braden Coburn. There you go.
Wow, that's a good answer. I love Kobe. I don't think Kobe knew where he was shooting it either. I think that's I think Bogosian has that going for him too. Bogosian just lets it rip, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I just, Bogo was kind enough. He gave me a few of his old sticks from my beer league career now. So he's added a little more toe curve, he told me. And I'm like, that thing looks deadly. I can't wait to put it into use on Tuesday night here. We got a 9:15 game. So I'm thrilled to put that thing to work.
Are you a beer league goalie, or are you out there as a forward?
No, there's no chance. I played goalie the other night after I watched the boys play for my daughter's practice, U12. Still got it at that level, at least. But yeah, there's no way I'm putting on pads for beer league. There's no chance. I don't think my ego could take that, conceding goals to those guys. And two, I've been telling myself, and I'm sure every goalie says this, is that they could score 50 goals in a season. But for me, the reality was I'm not that good. I play defense. I'm just kind of glad that I'm not standing in the pipes right now.
I like that. All right. So you hold this title. Tell me if this is a title that you're happy to hold. The oldest goaltender to make his first career playoff start. Is that something that you're excited to have, or would you rather not have to hear about that record? Is that a good record to have?
I think so. I mean, that seems, with the way the league is trending, that's going to be a tough one to break. Like, obviously, I'd like something a little cooler than that. But the reality was, it's like, hey, I got to start a playoff game, and that year in Carolina was pretty special. Usually, I was just mopping up games if they got out of hand. So, yeah, Carolina was I had a nice little run there. I mean, maybe only second to Pat Maroon. I went conference final, cup win, and cup win. So, yeah, I mean, I've got that picture. TSN put up like a little picture or whatever. I got this sweet photo of me in the playoffs, and then that little headline before. I feel like it was an Instagram post. So that's saved somewhere on my computer. But yeah, I mean, that cracks me up. I'll take any record I could get. I mean,
Okay.
provided it's not like a goals against record or something like that.
Listen, I totally forgot about this when I was doing my research on you, and I think this got lost in everything that was going on during, COVID and winning Stanley Cups. But I forgot about that mask, that the goalie mask that you created. Was with Matthew Joseph for Black History Month?
Yep. Yeah, we put something together. I believe I got that when we were in Toronto, and we did a little thing there, and I wore it throughout the playoffs. And then, to my knowledge, was that auctioned off last year? I
It
just
had to
remember
be.
Breezeman came and they took the mask, and I'm said, hey, yeah, put it to whatever use you guys want. I mean, that was the whole premise of it. And, Joe is awesome, and he's one of my favorite guys that I've played with. I just love his energy and everything that he brings to the table. So, when I presented that opportunity for him, he was all in on it. I really, beyond offering a blank canvas and a helmet, I did not have any part in it. But man, he knocked it out of the park. So, he put a lot of thought into it. Spoke with my painter, and they had a lot of conversations. Both French-speaking guys, so there are a lot of things that, if I had been trying to handle it, would have got lost in translation. So, but they did a tremendous job. I was pretty proud to wear that helmet.
Now, that was very cool. You did that. How many goalie masks do you have saved over your career?
There's a lot, and the only downside to being a career backup goalie and kind of hovering around that league minimum is, for the amount of times that I was traded, I don't have enough wall space in my house. I cannot buy a big enough house to hang all those jerseys or display all those masks. Every time you see players doing interviews, yeah, you look behind me here and you can see over my left shoulder. That's actually a kitchen cabinet that's waiting to be installed in my basement. So, there's no cool, like, helmets or jerseys hanging on my wall or whatever. I think it's not a shrine to myself. Let's put it that way. But
All
I
right.
do have a bunch. They're just all in my shed, down with my fishing gear and my goalie gear. So
All
they're
right.
hanging up in my shed. That's my shrine. Nobody
Well,
wants to see it in the house.
if times are ever tough, you need to start unloading that stuff, let me know. I would love to have your shrine in my house. I've got a couple of extra walls. They're in my daughter's room, but what does she care? She's only 4. She needs to learn about this stuff anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Curtis, I appreciate this. One last question for you. We had a good connection here, heart to heart, couple of real men. Tell me, who do you miss most on the Lightning? Who do you just miss seeing day in and day out? You might just say all the guys. I know the camaraderie is something that it seems like the retired players miss the most. What guys do you miss hanging out with every day?
I mean, I guess I would always, I loved watching Patty come into the room. Just, he's obviously got that long flow, and he's got his Letty dressing or whatever he's selling now.
Yeah.
So he's always putting that on. I just loved watching that guy walk into a room, get ready for another game, and just, a throwback in a sense. And obviously, Tampa's got the opportunity to sign him for a couple more years. Probably one of my favorite guys. Just kind of, if I'd sit in my stall there and watch him come in, he always entertained me. I'll say him.
Was he? It's because I've talked to Pat once. Is it because he's very, very funny, or is it just because he's a super nice guy, or a combination of both? Because everybody loves Pat Maroon.
Yeah, I think he's just got one of those infectious personalities where, it's hard not to like a guy like that, even when you're playing against him. I think he's a pretty honest player. 2, he's got, good personality. He's always, I don't want to say the life of the party, but he's out there having a good time. We've clearly seen that in our boat parades and our Stanley Cup parties and stuff. And, he's just, like I said, he's got that infectious personality where you love him. He's like a big old teddy bear. Yeah, he's just, I don't know. One of those fun guys. He makes hockey fun, right? It's not always serious. It's tough not to be in that profession when every game's so critical. But yeah, he makes it fun. That's the best part about him.
There you go, Pat. Listen, Curtis misses you. Call him, send him a text, something like that. Send him some Letty dressing, hook the man up. All right, listen, or for the kids, MHH Goalie Club. If you want mental lessons, anything from Curtis, hit him up, right? That's where to go to, Curtis, for that?
Yep, that's right.
Looking to become a goalie, this is the best place to start. I think I might be too old, but who knows? I'm going to hit you up after. Maybe I can get a promo code discount or something. Curtis, thank you very much, man. Enjoy retirement. We loved having you here, dude. And I'm glad that it looks like you're still a Lightning fan. I'm enjoying your increased presence on Twitter and Instagram. Keep that up, my friend. You're a good follow on both of those.
All right. Thanks a lot, Seth. Appreciate it.